We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming to today's Brownbag. Before I introduce our speaker, I just want to tell you about a few things we got coming up. As you know, we have a film series that we do. Every couple of weeks we show some sort of film, and this weekend, actually on Friday, we've got the first in our South Slavic series. So that's going to be introduced by Marta Greenberg, and she is going to be introducing a film called Montevideo. And if you're interested, we've got posters up everywhere. That'll be on Friday from 7 to 9 here in Bailey 318. Welcome to that. And then later on, March 3rd, we've got our annual security conference, and that's going to be a very, very good deal. We've got a really great program set up, a lot of international as well as nationally known scholars and experts on Turkey and its role in global affairs. And so that website, if you're interested, is can be reached very, very quickly from our main CREASE webpage. Registration is free, and we encourage, we have a lot of students and faculty who come in and listen to part, and then have to go and attend or teach classes, and then come back for other elements. So you're more than welcome to come over and do that. That's going to be on Monday, March 3rd, about a week and a half from now. Right, our speaker today is Irina Dr. Irina who is going to be speaking to us on the topic of the Russian Arctic and as a new Klondike for American oil companies. Irina is sort of my go-to person for business in Russia. In fact, she teaches a course on business in Russia and in Europe.
I didn't come up with this question. The question came up in mass media about 3-4 years ago and was widely discussed, both in Russian media and American media. And there were quite a lot of different messages, which I would read both in Russian and American media and discuss with my students. And the more I was reading with my students, the more they were coming with the questions, the more confused I was myself, because the messages were very different. There are all kinds of companies. There probably hasn't been a single American oil company which wouldn't start some kind of a marriage or wedding with Russia, came up to a certain point and then divorce, or will be very close to divorce, maybe separation for a while. So what's going on? What's happening? And I decided, to put this question to myself and start researching. And the more I research, the more I realize that I'm even more confused. And that's why my second slide is actually my favorite. Citing a quote from my favorite book. It's in Russian. It's from the Generation P, when the person is invited, Tatarsky is invited to make a project for the Sprite company. And before, he decided to do the project, he went reading. And before, he didn't read newspapers that much, but when he started reading, he was really confused with his reading, and that resulted in the project which he presented. So my project is definitely the result of the confusion which I have from the reading all kinds of different sources. There's probably a reason why they're so confused, and let's kind of however, Russians put a lot of priority to what's going on right now. You don't see that this Rotatom float, this is the biggest icebreaker, which is, guess what it's doing now, is actually what it was doing 2 weeks ago. It was carrying the Olympic flame, Olympic torch, up to the Arctics. And that's the Olympic torch. It's called 50 years of victory. That's the name of this biggest right now icebreaker. And it has this Olympic flame, and they had the best sportsmen there. And this is Artur Chelengarov, the person who is in charge of all Arctic research in Russia, and who's actually carrying this torch. So it shows that Russia wants to publicize that they are there, they are doing something there, they are very important. What's actually is, some things about, Arctic, why would be that important? It's also important to Washington, and it's of great interest in Washington, and the questions arising every now and then Though the mass media say that up to now, Obama didn't come with every very serious Arctic project. Arctic is critically important to Russia because Russia is highly sensitive to what's going in the Arctic. In 1991, the Arctic Council emerged, which united all the countries, 8 countries which border with the Arctics. But recently, it also accepted some other countries, which has nothing to do with Arctics. It's Japan, China, South Korea. They're all listed as observers in the Arctic Council. None of them have a specific Arctic policy yet, but all they want is to have a chance to be there when something would start to happen. They're Arctic outsiders, but they consider themselves as Arctic stakeholders, and China obviously has been the most attracted to this region. What are reserves are we talking about? According to the estimates, and these figures are almost everywhere, in Arctic has about 13% of world reserves of oil and 30% of reserves in natural gas. It's quite a lot. Sometimes they just give another figure, which is coming from U.S. Geological Institute of Geology, I think, which is 22% of resources overall. So that's about the numbers. But interesting enough that, of course, that's not the first time that Arctic was attracting attention of many countries, especially the Soviet Union, because the similar war was in the 20s and the 40s, from the 20s to the 40s, which looks like there was also some kind of melting of the ice, and they started doing quite a lot in this region. If you look at the map of Arctic, if we actually just, change our view of the world and look at this map as if this is the center of the world, we will see that the biggest land here is Greenland, and the Arctic Ocean, which is the main part of this map, is actually pretty unusual. What's so unusual about Arctic Ocean? It's the smallest in the world, and in size it's very close to the Mediterranean Sea. Half of its bottom is shelves, but shelves are very shallow, and part of this, under these shelves, or next to the shelves, there will be mountain ranges, basins, all kind of ancient plateaus, and they're crammed and jammed together in such a small space that geologists up to date don't know what's actually happening there and how Arctic emerged. There are quite a lot of things undeveloped and unresearched there. Another important thing is that Russia basically definitely have the biggest coastline. It's 4,000 miles, and Russia, up to a certain point, up to recently, claimed that this is the main, mostly possessed the whole Arctics, and claimed its territory up from the North Pole up to the whole territory of Russia. While later they kind of restricted Russia for 200 miles from this offshore, but still enough. Long before this time, well, one thing which is misleading, you think this is the ocean you can travel there, definitely you cannot. There are only a few places where you can actually travel. The northern and southern. Long before the scientists started to research it, or what is presented as scientific research, of course, the U.S. Marine knew this district very well, and the Russian Marine, Soviet Marine knew the district very well. Because, strangely enough, throughout the Cold War, Arctic was the most militarized zone in the world. Actually, if something was happening in the Cold War, it was happening here. And that's why there is so much of debris left in the Arctics. And they even don't know what kind of the debris, even from the Second World War. I watched some videos, they show the parts of German fuel tanks, all kind of stuff. So it's the most militarized zone. And since the U.S. Navy knew so much about it, and the information was not released, but actually in 1989, the first started in 1989. The US Navy finally agreed to release data of submarines, and it was them who told that the volume of ice had fallen by 40% for the last 20 to 40 years, and the changes seems to be happening everywhere where the submarines had been. And it's only now that we do real scientific research. And basically, all the countries now in Arctic Council agreed to start real scientific research, not only military research. Looks like the dynamic of business competition now is taking over the military ambitions, and why is this happening? First, the importance of Arctic to Russia. Clearly, Arctic is central to the Russian economic performance and standard of living, and as you know, carbohydrates is 40% of total export. And everything that related to new carbohydrate supplies is central in Russian policy, and that's why it's a very sensitive region. Energy is very crucial to Russian relation to Europe, because you know that Russia is facing very challenging decline of oil fields, and it's looking for new oil fields. It needs to develop new reserves and be able to continue to be the largest oil and gas, especially gas exporter to Europe. So it looks like it can't do without other countries and technologies, so they are trying to find the partners. However, from what's been happening in this is oil and gas reserves, and mostly are Russian reserves, and very few belongs to Canada, USA, and Norway. However, what has been done by oil companies there? If you read, if you start reading newspapers today, not in perspective, they all say that in the foreseeable future, nothing much will be happening. They've been very slow, and in the newspaper they constantly, in the mass media, emphasize that the projects will be slow, they will last for 10, 15, 25 years, and well, sometimes because the reason is a very short summer, they only can explore region in a very short summer month, 2 or 3. But at the same time, both in Russian and American mass media, they acknowledge the importance of the region, and they say that they are not leaving the region. What has really happened at the same time in this region? Just in a nutshell, you all read probably about Pechora Sea and Prilazlovnia platform with all this Greenpeace happening for a while. Looks like they are leaving this field right now. In the Barents Sea, Rosneft teamed with Norway and with Italian company Eni to investigate the prospects of the Barents Sea. In the Kara Sea recently, Rosneft also collaborated with ExxonMobil. Royal Dutch Shell was attempting to come to Russia, but first they were exploring Alaska, and they recently had an explosion. Well, it's not an explosion. Their drifting rig set ashore, and they had to attract quite a lot of reserves to kind of move it away from the shore. About 18 people were rescued, and after that, there was an oil spill, which was not very big. They managed to stop it pretty quick. But after that, they kind of said that they are stopping their operation in oil in American Alaska, so they also kind of put it on hold. BP started playing in the region about 2006, and this was lasting for 6 years, and about 2012 they completely said that they're leaving the project. There were quite a lot of ups and downs of the project, but they left the project. ConocoPhillips came in second in terms of investments, and they invested $500 million, but now they claim they're also not coming to the region. And probably the most important of these players, Gazprom, Rosneft, ExxonMobil, is still considered to be ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil And this is the announcement which I had on the 30th of February, it's a couple of days ago. It has a new strategic cooperation partnership. Companies add to 7 Arctic license areas covering approximately 600,000 square kilometers, which is 100 million acres in the Chukchi, Laptev, and Kara Sea. This is kind of new wedding, which might come. But another 2 companies which at that time Russia was playing is Hydro and Statoil. They're not American companies, but anyway, played very important role. And another field which completely is put on hold right now is the Stockman. We probably all heard about the Stockman field. The Stockman field was discovered in 1988. It's basically because of the gas condensate. And Gazprom was supposed to start it. It's called Stockman, just for the name of the ship which they discovered this field. And Stockman is the geologist. He has nothing to do with the Arctic. He never researched Arctic. It's just the ship, because of this ship. They put quite a big well there, but also put it on hold about, in the summer of the last year. So what's actually going on? How can we understand what's going on? Do you have any? What are your ideas? Why is Russia doing that? Marrying with someone, going away.
I was going to ask you about the impact of fracking, of the relationship with companies, with the with Russian companies and American companies, the impact of fracking, that you don't need that much oil, and then the Middle East gas is diverted, the LNG diverted to Europe because there is no need in North America and so on. So,
yeah, there's several reasons. First, this climate, very hard to develop. Second, this Stockman field was supposed to send most of the liquefied natural gas to the United States. And recently, they started developing shale gas and the United States, so there's no need in Russian Stockman field. And they stopped kind of for a while. They didn't say that they're completely putting the project on hold, but they stopped for a while. But it looks like the main reason lies somewhere else. Even the Greenpeace, which is a big deal, is probably not influencing that much. Yes, they're somewhat important. Yes, there is quite a big possibility for ecological catastrophe. But it looks like something else is going on. And it's only now, in the last probably 2-3 months, I started reading quite a lot of materials which appeared a lot in Russian media. They're saying, Russia is suddenly diverting attention somewhere else. What they are doing, right, Russia, what has estimated that probably they should revive the project, which was in Russia starting from 1991, which is North Route through Russia. North Sea route. The project was put on hold after the collapse of the Soviet Union, but basically the Russians built quite a lot of infrastructure and put a lot of resources here. In these 20 years, all this infrastructure almost reduced to nothing. They have to rebuild it again. But it looks like if the snow is really melting, and it is melting, that should be much more important for Russia than just developing these fields by itself. They found a big alternative to the current route, which is bypassing Africa, and the problems with pirates here. And it's going to be alternative to another route from Rotterdam to San Francisco, which is even longer. If we compare the routes, these routes, then the numbers. Here they compare the days, 35 days up to 48 days. If you go north or south. But apart from that, there are less resources, less crew, less ecological damage, and much more safe. Is it cheap for Russia to do that? Yes and no. When we're talking about summer months, and it's only 3 months, yes, it's cheaper. It will be cheaper for ships to go north than to go go south. If we are talking about north months, it looks like this route will be more expensive than going through the Suez Canal in the south. However, it will be very expensive only if Russia will not invest in the icebreakers and the new fleet. As you know, Russia has the biggest, it's the only country in the world which has nuclear icebreakers. And also they will kind of become worn out in these years, and if you know Lenin icebreaker, which was the flagman of the Soviet icebreaker team, was at a certain point became a museum, and you can actually go somewhere in the north, you can even visit this icebreaker. But recently they started coming with a lot of information that they are putting a lot of money in the new icebreaker shoes. This is which is sorry. Yes, that's the one which is going to be built in Baltijski Zavod, and that's a new one, and that's supposed to be the biggest in the world. They will use new technology, and it will. The project here it will be called Baltica, and the estimate here is 2017. Another thing. So it looks like transportation bypassing the Suez Canal is the way to go for Russians. Recently, they released another information about the Yamal Peninsula. They are going to put a new LNG factory plant there, and actually they're planning to invest in Yamal quite a lot. It's only about several days ago that I went in New Word, and the new word is Sabeta. Have anybody heard that word? It's actually the name of the new port, which is going to be there. A seaport and airport in the Yamal Peninsula. Until recently, 2 months ago, it was still a small place, and only people who were working in the Arctic knew about that. Recently it's appeared in a new name, and that would be a big name because they will put the customs there for all the ships which were going through the North Sea, and they are really developing pretty good. Let me show you a couple of the one video clip. That's the new word, Sabata. And they're pretty good in advertising it now, those with the new media.
Russia begins construction of the biggest Arctic port in the Yamal Peninsula. Over $30 billion of investment will come from the state and from the private gas producer Novatek. In 6 years, it will be serving LNG shipments from Yamal to all over the world. Experts believe the new Arctic port will help make the Northern Sea route attractive to businesses and will lure away a substantial part of cargo shipments from other transit routes. Tatiana Polyakova takes it.
I am now walking along the shortest sea passage connecting the east and the west part of our planet, the Northern Sea route. The water here is like 10 degrees now, but most of the year it's icebound, and that's the main reason why it cannot compete with the main cargo transit route, the Suez Canal. The main advantage of the Northern Sea route is that it is 2 times shorter than the Suez Canal. Nordic bulk carriers, which will become the biggest user of the route this year, says navigation through the Northern Sea instead of the canal shortens the trip to just 23 days compared to 43 through the canal. It also saves 1,000 tons of fuel, or more than $600,000. Vessels going through the Northern Sea route will avoid long queues and possible pirate attacks. However, one obstacle remains: icebreaker escorts.
The icebreaker escort will cost not much more or less than the shipment itself. How expensive it will be for the company will depend on whether the icebreaker accompanies just one ship or a convoy. However, there are no fixed rates on offer in the sector yet.
Last year, just 34 ships used the passage, nothing compared to the 18,000 vessels passing through the Suez Canal annually. This area is thought to hold a third of our planet's oil and gas reserves, which makes the Northern Sea route the most efficient way to supply Western Europe and China with fuel, timber, and metals. So the more the Arctic ice that melts and the more gas from Rosneft, Novatek, Lukoil, and the others drill here, the sooner the cargo shipments can take advantage of this once frozen sea passage and become a real alternative through the Suez Canal. But currently, global business RT, the other.
Try to just minimize it.
Just minimize them. That's an interesting map, which I found from one of the episodes, probably looking at more than anything else that's going on. Now, instead of developing this stockland and going up in the sea, which is very risky, basically they develop this route and they develop this Sabbath is actually here, this Sabbath. They can come with these potential regions that they explore even more and bring it back to China, because China is actually really the buyer of all these materials. Right now, China imports 60% of its oil and gas. So China is much more important now to Russia than America, which developed shale gas, claiming that it's number one in production of gas, and Russia can be number two. But off you go. Russians, it looks like Russians reorient themselves pretty quickly into the different direction. That's what I kind of got from what I started reading. And another thing which also is released, has been released recently, is, but this is a military zone. It's always been a military zone. But now Russians openly claim that they're moving the Arctic northern bases or restoring the old ones, cleaning them. The Cold War is coming, this region is coming back. And they're claiming they're doing this for the safety of the North route. Well, they're not doing it the first because Norway had quite a lot of military training in the regions, and of course Canadians and Americans are also there, so there's nothing new there. The only new things that they are openly tell about this, they presented to in the Russian news. So that's the clip of, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago. Okay. Sorry, this one is in Russian. They haven't publicized it in English yet, for obvious reasons probably. Basically, they're telling that by the year 2012, they have to renew all the bases which will be there. They will store the military bases. Franz Josef Land is where they will again start the military base. And, you know, Putin kind of claims that the location present there. Why? As they say, for the security of the North Fleet. So, when I put the question to myself, is will Russian Arctic become Klondike to American companies? Well, the more I researched, the more I forgot about American companies, and the more I started thinking about Russian companies. And probably the question that we should put now, would Russian Arctic become Klondike to Russian companies? Because Rosneft as Gazprom is definitely present there. They are now the only two companies, all the rest are gone, the only two companies which has all the licenses, and they split this region between themselves. And most of them, I think, Karasi goes to Gazprom. Karasi goes to Rosneft, whereas Morelaptsevich and Stockman goes to Gazprom. They kind of split the licenses, if I'm not mistaken, the regions of influences. And the numbers of licenses they got are different, with different sources. You know, do not really release how many licenses they got from the government. How much support they got from the government is not yet clear. But it looks like all the money is now being put to the Russian companies instead of paying to American companies, having this complicated deals which are biased with possible military Cold War conflicts and all kind of like this. So things are in a way straightened out in a way for Russia. That's my impression from what I got, from what I was reading lately. So I think the question I put to myself was wrong. And the question which was discussed 3-4 years ago in mass media should probably be reoriented according to the, especially the last 2-3 months. What's going on? It's going to be quite a lot of things to know about the Arctic, but under absolutely different angle. That's probably as much as I wanted to tell you. I have more information, but that's in a nutshell. If you have any question, and if you can come up with some kind of discussion, that would be interesting.
I remember reading that earlier in the last decade,